Well, good day to you. It is November the 30th. Hope you guys are doing well out there. My name is Gary Willing, and I want to welcome you to Search for Signs. And also, just really quickly point out to those people who are new, and remind those people again who have heard these videos before, that if you want some background information about Maitreya, the Masters of Wisdom, his priorities, why he's here, read more about it. If you want to see if there's any truth to this information for yourself, read more about it. And then, and only then, will you know. The best thing to do is to go to the description portion of every one of these videos, whether it's below the video or to the side. Just depends on how you're listening to this video, right? Whether it's on a tablet, on a computer, on your phone. The best thing to do is to click on some of those links there, check out the websites and the information on some of those websites. I would definitely recommend the Share International sites. At the very top, you get the best information there than you can anywhere else about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. So hopefully you'll check it out. If you want to join the discussion, you can post comments, let me know what you think. You can also ask questions by posting your questions in the comments section, or you can email me at searchforsigns@mail.com. I also want to thank everybody who's commented and asked a question since the last time I put a video up. But James, you had a series of questions that I'll try to answer. What is the main cause of evil on planet Earth? Is the evil jinns headed by Lucifer, the devil? The dark forces corrupt human souls, or something else? Wow. I mean, who really knows, right? I mean, if you wanted to get really impractical about it, from what I understand from the Ageless Wisdom Teachings, that evil comes from a very, very high source. And it comes from what's called the sixth ray, and the slight, ever so slight, disharmony between the sixth ray and the other rays, and it manifests itself eventually on evil on this planet, which means nothing to me, which I'm sure means nothing to you, because it doesn't mean anything to me. This is just how Ben explained it. But the other way that the Ageless Wisdom Teachings kind of looks at the origins of evil, it comes from and stems from the previous solar system. So our solar system is in the second life of its series of 3 lives. The first incarnation of this solar system, which is way before written record, the highest form of spirituality that humanity could express was involution. Now it's evolution. So at some point, spirit's got to go into matter, that's involution, and then at some point, spirit's got to come out of matter back into spirit. That is evolution. So involution has its own purpose. You know, it's the yin-yang of things, you know what I mean? So I mean, technically, every time a person comes into incarnation, that's spirit coming into matter, right? That's involution. As they start to progress, as they start to learn, and they incarnate and eventually become a master, that's spirit coming out of matter into spirit again. Now, where involution becomes, there's the distinction between involution alone and evil is when the forces of involution slow down, restrict, or inhibit the forces of evolution's progress. Okay, so that's from what I understand it to be. That's an oversimplification of it, but that kind of gives you a general view of it. The origins of it, like I said, go, eons upon eons upon eons ago. Now, the origins of evil on this earth, like you were talking about, perhaps are only a few million years old, I guess, but that's still way before recorded history. Perhaps in the Ageless Wisdom Teachings of Helena Blavatsky or the Master DK, he talks about it, but you'd really have to dive into that and really look at it, I guess. But now, what does it mean for humanity? Okay, so this is what I wanted to kind of talk about. So everything in life is energy, without exception. So all the culture that we see today, all the culture that's of the past, all the ways of thinking today and of the past, and in the future even, all the cultures that we'll be building in the future are all going to be based or were based on the energies that were available for humanity at that time. The technologies that humanity comes up with all are based on the energies that are available to humanity at the time of its creation. That's it. We don't look at life like that. We think it is all separate and unrelated, and then as it's kind of mounted and built up, well, that's kind of the culmination of that society. But it's not. It's the energies that are available to humanity. Today is no different. There is a nefarious energy, and there's also the energy of light. It's just you have to kind of look at it like this. Now, I don't think And where I think it gets all twisted up is people think they can label something as evil and it's evil, when it really probably isn't true evil in the sense that what the Ageless Wisdom Teachings would say it to be. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so when somebody harms you at work, right? Let's think about just a scenario, right? You're at work, somebody gossips about you, it hurts your feelings, right? And then you talk about that person and say, well, Julie or Sally or Jimmy or John or whatever, they were evil because they said that about me. Were they really an evil person, or were they just being mean? True evil is not, they're not exhibiting true evil. That all stems from the belief that and the perception that we are separate, the false perception that we're separate, because they wouldn't have done that or said that or thought those things about anybody had they known the truth that we are one. And I'm just saying this is a hypothetical sense, because I found myself in this situation too, where I start talking about them, and I would not have talked about them to try to harm them had I known the truth and lived the truth that we are one. Do you see what I'm saying? But it doesn't mean that I'm evil or they're evil. It just means that this is just a happening that's happened. But people label that stuff all the time. Somebody breaks up with them, right? They'll say they're dating and they're fundamentalist Christian. They think that's an evil that they've perpetrated on them, when they really didn't perpetrate an evil. They just broke up with a person because they just saw that they perhaps weren't, compatible or something. Does that make sense? Now, there is evil on this planet, but like I said, it's not, and the good news is I don't think it's as pervasive as most people would think. But it does have an influence on humanity. Does that make sense? So now I'm going to swing back and talk about, you said something about Lucifer. I'm going to swing back and talk about that here in a second. But like I said, everything in life is energy, and there is a nefarious energy that influences humanity. The influence is strong, but it's not as strong as it was during the time of World War I and World War II. So the influence of that energy is, like I said, still there, still strong, but not quite as strong as it was back then. Now, when people talk about the Antichrist, or they even talk about Lucifer, right? They think of it as an individual, right? Lucifer is the devil, the Antichrist is its son or its spawn or whatever, right? When really those are just very much misinterpretations of their own scriptures. Okay, so Lucifer was written, I think, mainly in the Old Testament, if I'm not mistaken. And from what I understand it to be, because I was talking to a person who is a lot more knowledgeable about the origins of that word Lucifer than I'll ever be, because I don't put a lot of time and energy into it. But from what they were telling me was that the view of Lucifer being the devil is a relatively new phenomena. That, if we were to talk to somebody 200, 300, 400, 500 years ago, or even 1,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago, and you mentioned the word Lucifer, they would have a whole different view on what that word means, because it literally is, it comes from the Latin derivative of bringer of light. That's what Lucifer means. It doesn't mean anything, it doesn't have any evil connotation just in the word Lucifer. There was, and what he was telling me was, it wasn't but 100 years ago or so, maybe 120, 30 years ago, that term started to take on a different life of its own, to where now people, when they hear the word Lucifer, they're automatically triggered into thinking you're talking about the devil. Now, I'm not any smarter than anybody else, but I am smart enough to know that words over time take different meanings and mean different things to different people, and create all sorts of emotional reactions based on whoever you're talking to at that time. And there are words that we said even earlier on in my lifetime that if you said it today in public, you can get fired from your job, right? But back then, people used to say it all the time, right? I'm not going to bring up those words, but you know what I'm talking about. But it could be anything. So good luck trying to win over somebody's view on the fact that Lucifer doesn't mean the devil, because that's what it means to these people. It's already conditioned in them, right? But in the future, I think when we have a different view of it, perhaps lose our paranoid fear about some of these things, we might be able to discuss it a little bit more intelligently. But Lucifer means bringer of light from Latin, but it was written into the Bible to symbolize the oversoul of humanity. Now, I don't want to get into this too much because this is a whole other talk show that we could talk about this. But the soul of humanity, there's one soul of humanity. And then out of the billions of people there are, we are all fragments of that one soul. So if you had I have a dog, but if you had somebody that had like 3 or 4 dogs in your house, right? Each one of those dogs does not have an individualized soul, just as if you had 3 or 4 kids living in your house. So each child would have its own individualized soul, right? But a dog, 3 dogs, 4 dogs, 5 dogs do not have their own individualized soul. They're all one soul. That's what separates humanity from animal. Now, that oversoul is what they were talking about when they were referring to Lucifer, but it's been misinterpreted to mean the devil. So, like I say, good luck trying to explain that to somebody who's a fundamentalist Christian. They're not going to get it, right? Now, it's the same thing with the Antichrist. The Antichrist was not written into the Bible to mean an individual, but yet that's what people are waiting for. That's what they're thinking about. That's what they're investigating, trying to find, and all this kind of. That's what they're trying to put the label on people that they don't like. They're the Antichrist. Just as people put the label on somebody that they don't like as they're evil. But they're not really evil. They're just somebody that you don't like, right? Just as I've thrown this out there when people talk about the Antichrist, right? All the different videos that if you go to just YouTube and type in Antichrist or end times Antichrist or whatever it happens to be, you'll see all these different interpretations of all these different celebrities or political figures that people label the Antichrist. And every single time, it's always somebody that sees something different than them. It doesn't mean that Obama's the Antichrist. It just means that some very paranoid, Republican-minded, conservative, probably fundamentalist Christian has taken that because he's a Democrat, perhaps because he's black, and because he has a different take on politics, then that makes him the Antichrist. You would never see a fundamentalist Christian Republican saying that a fundamentalist Christian Republican political figure is the Antichrist. It will never happen. I guarantee you it would never happen. Just as people who view Donald Trump as the Antichrist, because I know there are people who would probably say he's the Antichrist, are always more left-leaning. It's not a MAGA supporter that views him as the Antichrist and they're following him because they think he's the Antichrist. You see what I'm saying? So we label things evil. We label things as the Antichrist or things that we are afraid of or we hate. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're evil. The evil that's centered on this planet is really in 3 different locations. It's having a tremendous negative, nefarious effect on humanity, but yet you could kind of put your finger on where it is. One is at the Pentagon. The other one is in the Zionist movement in Israel, and the other one is on the kind of where the Baltic states are in Eastern Europe. And if you look at the fruit of the Pentagon, the Zionist movement in Israel, and what has happened and is continuing to go on in the Baltic area of Eastern Europe, you can see the results of this energy. Nothing but destruction, nothing but violence and bloodshed, nothing but, terror, true terror. And it's coming from those 3 points. Now, the masters can counteract that evil very easily. In fact, Ben's master had said it's quite easy for them to do it. But what's hard for them is the inertia of humanity, because they can't influence. They can't. They can't infringe human free will. So really, what we might consider to be evil, what we might consider to be nefarious or whatever, is really just human inertia, right? That's very hard to counteract. That's what the forces of darkness use against humanity. They use our fear against us. They use our inertia against us to keep us where we're at. Again, the forces of involution obstructing the flow of evolution is evil, right? They use that fear to keep us enthralled, right? Now, I wanted to leave you with this, because I think this is the most practical thing that we could think about when it comes to evil, true evil. Anytime, and this is coming from Ben's master, any time that we put out fear, we are actually helping willingly or unwillingly, but we're helping them, we're aiding the forces of evil. Because we don't know how far out our thoughts go before they come back to us. So it's very, very important to not spread fear, especially during times of uncertainty such as today. But we really have nothing to fear. The uncertainty that we are feeling is the uncertainty of what lies beyond where we're at. But we're going to get to there no matter what, right? It doesn't matter how strong the forces of evil are in terms of their influence on humanity. They will not win. They can't. The tide is already turning. As Ben's master said, the new age is on its way. It's just that, the forces that are trying to keep the tide from swinging that way, are trying. And they're doing a pretty darn good job by appearances, but they're really not winning because humanity's heart is strong. Humanity wants unity, wants peace, wants to see the end of hunger. Whether we intellectualize that to ourselves or not, we all want that. There's no way that the forces of evil can ever truly win in the end. It can't happen. So that's the good news. But anyway, I love you guys, and thank you very much for the question, James. I know I probably didn't answer it as fully as you wanted, but I did the best I could. You guys have a great day, and I look forward to putting up videos in the very near future. Have a wonderful day. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.